What the? What the? Okay, we're gonna need more food here in a minute. Hey everybody, welcome to Lions Pride Tavern podcast number 81. Tonight we find out how we did in this weekend's continuing raid of Antorus the Burning Throne. And tonight, our last boss of the infamous series, Dancing with the Bosses. But before all that, let's start off with introductions. I'm your host, Stafford. I play a Dwarven Beastmaster Hunter in the awesome game World of Warcraft. Next up is JobUi.
Hi, I'm JobUi. I play a Worgen Fire Mage.
And Lorelei.
Hi, it's Lorelei, your Night Elf Arms Warrior.
And Epistle.
This is Epistle. I play a blue-hooved protection paladin.
Blue-hooved? Say
It
that
blue-
3 times fast.
It behooves you to put that in the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes.
I felt that one coming.
Yeah. And Charity.
Hey, I'm your Draenei Restoration Shaman.
Welcome, everybody. How was your week?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
That's
Saw a
good.
couple of movies this weekend.
Ooh, what'd you go see?
Saturday went to see I Can Only Imagine, and that's really, really good. And today we went and saw Pacific Uprising, which was also
Oh.
another good action movie.
Yeah, that's Pacific Rim. That's the continuation, right?
Mhm. Second one.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to check
And
that
so
out.
it was as good as the first one?
I think the first one was a little better, but this one was good too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a lobby around our place to go out there sometime the next few days. We have spring break here, which is kind of misnamed as there's still snow and below freezing temperatures, but we'll pretend it's warm. I'm wearing a
It's
Hawaii
a-
shirt, in fact, today for that reason.
But it's
that's
officially spring now, though.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I
Doesn't look like
started.
it here either.
I opened my greenhouse. I planted seeds, so I've got my seeds started in my greenhouse for spring.
Well,
Nice.
I'm
Just
glad
don't leave the
it's
door
spring
open.
in your greenhouse because
Yeah.
it is. The calendar says it's spring, but it is not spring outside.
Yeah,
Nope.
I mean it's cold and stuff, but where I live, our growth season is really short. So if I didn't have
Yes.
a greenhouse, then I would be hard pressed to get a very good crop every year. And
Yeah.
so, but I've done pretty well with having a greenhouse. It's a pretty nice way to. In fact, I actually like to go out there on really cold days and just sit in like the warmth of the greenhouse and like smell the dirt and stuff. Kind of vicariously experience spring in my greenhouse.
Well, you could be like me and just grow cropless.
Oh boy.
Oh, that was not an image we want to keep.
No, literally, I have a brown thumb, so I do grow weeds. Weeds.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Good fix there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
Medicinal weeds.
it's yeah. Well, it's I went to dinner with this couple the other night, and she was talking about how the reason they have a baby now is because they went to their neighbors and had special brownies.
Oh.
And they went home and got pregnant, and now they call them baby making brownies.
Oh my.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, yeah, that's probably not the brownies you want to eat anymore then. They're really excited. They just had a baby boy, and he's absolutely gorgeous.
Congratulations.
Cutest little thing, yeah. He does listen to our podcast because he plays WoW.
I was gonna
But-
say. I mean, I'm sure he probably doesn't listen, but if he does,
He does. Now, unfortunately, though, now that he's a new dad, he came in the other day and he goes, "I've gotten like 2 hours of sleep." I was like, "Hey, welcome to be fatherhood. Yes, it's that way. Yes, you get up every 2
Well,
hours."
it does get better.
Yes.
Yeah, you get to make gifts of your
Eventually.
daughter posing.
Yeah, isn't she? But
She's
That was
adorable.
fantastic. That was
It made
so
me
awesome,
so happy.
Joe
I
Bowie.
was having a bad day, and you cheered me up. So thanks.
Oh, that's nice. My little girl was posing with a new outfit, and I made an animated GIF of her posing with it. I just asked her to pose. She was on her way out the door, and I was like, hey, I was like, strike a pose for me, and so she did, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm turning that into a GIF.
And it was fantastic.
It
That
wasn't
was
even
absolutely
just
great.
a pose. It was like she was dancing into it.
Well,
Yeah, she
see, I
like
thought because they have a gymnastics company, I thought she was trying to do the routines.
she
Is
does
what I
that.
thought. Yeah, I know. That's
She
you've
does.
told me that before.
Yeah, she does do that. She like when we're at the gym, she'll have us turn on music, and then she does her whole floor routine. Now, it's really hilarious is in actual gymnastics when the gymnasts are doing floor, they go to the corners of the floor and then they do their like running tumble pass where they'll do like a bunch of like different types of tricks, and then they usually do a big trick at the end. And that is absolutely hilarious to watch her do because she just runs and runs and runs and runs because she's so small. It takes her forever to run across it. She gets all the way to the other side, and then she'll like jump and then like turn around and stuff. It's pretty cute.
Yeah, it's gonna be cute until he turns teenager.
Yeah. And that, well, hopefully, I mean, if she keeps up doing the gymnastics, then it's just awesome. Because I tell
Yeah.
you, man, those teenagers in our gym, they do some pretty amazing stuff. I mean, we have some kids go compete national and whatnot.
Very cool. And this is all up in little North Dakota, South Dakota.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we even had we've had some gymnasts like go to the Nastia Cup, which is like big, like Nastia Liukin was a Olympic gymnast, and she has like a special competition that she does every year and stuff. So yeah, maybe someday my little one will do some more serious gymnastics or not. It's okay either way.
Yeah, we support them whichever way they go. So, well, awesome. So I had a job, work-related, real life got in the way of playing WoW thing this weekend. So I did not get to raid with you guys at all.
Nope.
Friday or Saturday. So
We're not there. Nope.
Yeah, we
Nope.
had
We
to
blamed
sacrifice
you,
Amia all weekend.
Did you?
Poor
Yeah,
guy.
That's
yes,
it.
yeah, that was true.
And of course,
Amia
blamed
was the
you in
official
absentia.
sacrifice. Nice. Did you do any calls?
Who?
Pucky
Well,
did.
we said it's
Oh.
Stafford's fault.
Oh, well, of course. Yeah, you got to blame Stafford because he's not there.
Yeah,
Sure.
we blamed you and sacrificed poor Amia.
It all
Well,
worked
that's
out.
all right. I'm sure she was fine with being sacrificed. I mean, I always am. So, well, I'm excited to find out how you guys did. So, Joe-Bowie, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Well, a bunch of folks got together to adjust the lockout because apparently the lockout they had still had some stuff in the way. So they ran through normal and cleared it up to Agrimar, or up to Argus the Unmaker, actually. So we had that all cleared up, ready to go, which was great. And we did Argus, and although it was a bit of a face pull. Somebody was messing around with a toy, and then I
That
think
was hilarious.
I think it was Amia. She was on fire, and she ran it right into the boss and pulled it, and they were like, "What are we doing?" I was like, "Just go with it," and so we did, and we downed it. So
It was so good because just suddenly we hear, "Ah!" and she
Yeah.
runs across
There's
the whole
somebody
place
running
on
around
fire,
and we're all
naked.
kind of like, what?
Yeah, we're
Who
all
did
like,
that? Who did
it was
that?
pretty.
Why? And it
Yeah.
was just funny.
Yeah. So
That needs to be made into a GIF.
so we got through Argus, and we're back in Heroic within 15 minutes, which was great. Gave us a whole lot of time to work with. We went through Guidotti, Fellhounds, and Torn High Command, ENR, and then we did Portal Keeper, and then we downed Iminar the Soul Hunter before the end of raid on Friday night. that's great. I mean, that's pretty far for us.
Yeah, we were really on fire.
Yep. And then we so we come back on Saturday and we downed Kingaroth in one shot, down Veramathras in one shot, and that was our first attempt at
Wow.
Veramathras.
Yeah.
And then went on to Coven, and that's where we spent the rest of our evening, was working on Coven.
So the predictions were correct.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, it's a tough fight. Coven is probably, mechanically speaking, one of, if not the most difficult fight, in my opinion, of the entire Antorus the Burning Throne. There's a lot of personal responsibility in that fight as far as keeping yourself alive and getting used to the additional mechanics. It's quite a bit different as far as things you have to deal with from normal, like the transition from normal into heroic. I think the transition there is a little bit greater than a lot of the other fights. So, you know, it's just, I think once everybody gets used to it, it'll go really smooth. But I got to say that the whole entire raid, though, you know, both Friday and Saturday night, really great raid. Everybody did a really good job. We did improve over the course of the time from the first pull on Coven to the last. Our last pull was our best pull. We didn't get it down, but, you know, we did give it a pretty good try, and people were starting to get the new mechanics down a little bit better. And we recognize some things that we can adjust for next week that might help improve things a little bit and make it a little easier. And we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Stafford will be there.
Hey, yeah.
I don't know if that's a hindrance or not.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Well, that's awesome. Veramathras in the first poll. Wow.
Veramathras did not really seem that hard.
Well, no, but that's because I think we had good planning. Because it's easy to mess that one up if people don't handle. There's one particular mechanic. It's called Necrotic Embrace, and if players don't handle Necrotic Embrace well, then it'll just destroy everybody. It's a wipe if one person messes up Necrotic Embrace. But nobody did.
Yeah,
Right?
I know as tanks, we were really nervous about that. So we were, you know, bringing our A game and doing all the best we could to keep ourselves alive. I know the healers are doing their best too. But I guess we've geared up enough that it wasn't quite the, impossible situation it might have been if we had gotten there, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Also,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. Also, we've been doing the heroic strategy. We could have been doing the normal strategy, and the tanks could have just stood on top of each other and went through it that way. But instead, they were doing the taunting strategy where they had to be away from each other already. So they were already pros. So it made it a lot easier on the healers.
Oh, I can hear heads swelling.
All in all, though, I mean, all the players they did a really good job. Like I said, that Necrotic Embrace, there wasn't a single mess up of that. Everybody got it out of the group. Everybody took it, far enough away. And you have to get Necrotic Embrace a minimum, of 11 yards away, basically, because anybody within 10 yards, when it goes off, will get infected with Necrotic Embrace, and then, you know, we're stacked as a group, so you'd pretty much infect the whole raid, aside from the tanks, if you're not outside of the distance. And everybody got away. Everybody got far enough away, and we didn't have any problems. I was really, really pleased to see that.
Very cool, yeah, because one of our number one fans, Lilith Alou, which I can say in definity, that's what I was trying. Definity that she is female, because she told me.
All right.
In her comment back to us, yes, I am female, because we questioned that last weekend, or last podcast.
Well, we just didn't want to assume, you know.
Right. And she definitely said that, she says, honestly, Veramathras isn't too different from normal to heroic. It's just an extra mechanic that someone needs to run out of the group. I'm guessing that's your necrotic. Is that what you're talking about?
It is, yeah.
Okay, yep. And she says it's a little bit more healing intensive. Is that true,
Right.
Charity?
I have to say that this weekend I could not tell you because they had me go DPS. But from what I saw, It was, but the healers were very good about timing their cooldowns and being communicative, so I think they did all right this weekend.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that was our comment for the week. She really likes our YouTube videos. I think she likes watching Donna draw.
Donna does an excellent job.
Yes. So, Vera Mathers one shot. I'm gonna have to hope we do it again. Now, so we're all set up now though for our
Yep.
to start right off. We don't have to do Guidotti anymore, right?
No, well, not on normal.
No, okay.
So,
That's what I mean on normal.
And here's the thing: is we're approaching the point soon where the only reason we might continue to do Argus on normal is simply for practice to stay sharp on the Argus fight. But I don't think it's going to be necessary more than maybe a couple more weeks for us even to keep doing Argus the Unmaker on normal. We're getting closer to it. In a couple of weeks, I should have the lockout, or not the lockout, but I should have the bypass, so that you can go straight to Agrimar. If we want to skip Coven, like if we were banging our heads against Coven and we go, let's just go do Agrimar and Argus, we could go do those on Hero, because I think those are actually easier fights than
and
Coven.
That won't give us AOTC if we don't get Coven down, correct?
Oh, no, you'll still get it.
Oh, no, you just have to do the final boss.
Yeah, you could skip every boss.
AOTC.
You could kill Argus the Unmaker, you get AOTC. But
okay.
So like in a couple of weeks I'll have that. And we might even have some members of the team that already have that available. I'm not sure. But a lot of us are getting up to the point where our trinkets are getting close to 1,000, or they are already at 1,000. I know mine got to 1,000 this week.
Yep, popped up this week.
I
got a little ways
missed
to go.
2 raids. I missed 2 raids, so I got 2 more to go.
But my personal thought was that we just keep going until we get like the vast majority of the raid to their 1,000 on their trinkets.
Yeah, I agree.
We obviously we can't necessarily do that for absolutely everybody, because we have players who aren't there every week, and they may only show up once every 3rd week or something. And we can't necessarily keep doing normal Argus for those players, but I don't think it'll be long before we're doing Argus on Heroic too. So they'll have an opportunity to get upgrades once we get to that point as well.
Well, thanks to Titan Forging, you still have a chance of getting something, so it's not a total write-off from a gear perspective.
No, and the Argus gear that drops is, I think, 10 item levels higher than what you would get from like any of the other bosses in normal. I think it comes out at 945 gear instead of or something like that, 940, 945, instead of the lower level gear that from all the other bosses. Let's see here. Yeah, from normal, he gives 940 gear, and all the rest of the normal bosses start at 930. So it is a little bit of a boosted piece of gear anyway.
Very cool. So we did pretty well transitioning across the bridge.
Oh, yeah, that went better, I think, sort of. It wasn't totally clean, but, we made it across the bridge, and it was just, and all we did for that one, it was just everybody be really careful, take your time, try not to step in anything, make your way across the bridge on your own terms, kind of thing. And I think on that second phase, I think I was the first person to make it to the far side of the bridge, and then everybody came shortly thereafter, just made their way through. And so yeah, we didn't really do anything particularly special for that, other than just everybody be really careful, and most everybody made it.
All right, good. Yeah, because I know it was a stumbling block. Like Portal Keeper, the imps are a stumbling block there, and then this one was the bridge. So I was just curious how we are progressing along with that.
Yeah, I will say that on the Kingaroth fight, I based it off the damage everybody was doing on the trash, and I split the group up, and amazingly we split the group up about as equal as we possibly could have, because the mini bosses on the 2 platforms that we were split and attacking at the same time were going down within about 2 or 3 seconds of each other, and every single time they came up. So that we didn't have to make any adjustments on that at all. It just worked out great.
That was another one that felt a lot easier than it should have been. I watched that fight and I said, "Oh gosh, this is splitting everybody up. That's going to be kind of hard." But it was like, for a minute, I thought we were on normal.
Wow.
Yeah. But everybody, I think everybody's got that fight down, is why it feels so comfortable now.
Yeah, awesome.
But it went really, really smooth. That was easily our best kill of Kingaroth so far.
Definitely.
Good. Yeah, because Lilith mentioned that she actually, with her group, she puts everybody on one side of the platform, and then the sleep canisters go across, where we're still doing the one spot, and then the range just kind of spread out.
Oh, you mean for Iminar?
Yeah, for Iminar. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's the bridge one. That was the one that was giving us our biggest issue. So she was commenting on that, but I just didn't read that part because I think we got, whether you do it the way she does it, where you put everybody on one side and run to the other, or, you just have a designated spot for the melee to go and range stay spread out. She must have a lot more range than we do because she said they don't have enough room. Their range doesn't have enough room.
We just designated the no-go zone for the ranged, which is where the melee are supposed to go. And that seems to be working out pretty good for us.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm definitely not hearing the tanks go, "Oh, I'm asleep again," all the time anymore.
Yep. There was several that were very close, but they were just able to get out of the way.
They got the melee. Because I don't know if they were being dispelled too quick, because I wasn't hearing a lot of them calling it. So they'd turn around. I could see them turn around and take a step, and then we'd all be asleep. So I'm not sure what was going on with that one.
It could be either slow reaction time or too early to spell. We'll have to look into that.
We had a couple people stand in between the spot and the melee, and then we had most people weren't calling it. And the healers are like, okay, well, at some point I gotta dispel, because nobody's calling it. So they sometimes would dispel, and the guy was just standing in melee or whatever, and that's why they didn't call it, was because they were in melee.
Oh, we'll have to remind everybody to call it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, remind everybody not only just to call it, but also to
not
go
to
over to the spot
if they're not in the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Just I mean, because if it goes off, it goes off. I mean, but if you dispel it while they're in the group, well, then it's kind of it sort of shifts the blame a little. But because they're denied that last few seconds of reaction time they might have had or whatever. But we'll just remind everybody next week.
Okay, so Coven. So let's talk a little bit about Coven. So that's our new stumbling block.
Yeah, that's our new maiden, is what that is.
Yeah, ew.
It's not as bad as maiden. I'll grant you that. It's
so there
just
was no Jobui alarms or Shepherd alarms.
They would.
Was there a cappuccino alarm?
No, of course not. I mean, it's a progression boss anyway.
Right. Oh, okay.
Lots of RNG. Like, figuring out where the spots on the ground were. We had to change our graphics, and people thought they were the circles, but it wasn't the circle because it's hard to tell. And
it seemed like there was a whole bunch of, a whole variety of things that could kill us there, or gradually take us down and take more and more damage. So it's one of those skill sets that we have to learn multiple tricks and multiple skills just to smooth out all the bumps on that fight. I would think, like everything from, I'll say a little more on my spot, where we're aiming the bosses, to which ads we're taking first, to anticipating and moving ahead of any of the damage that comes out, CCing the mobs. It's a whole mixed. It feels like we have to dig into our all of our bags of tricks to be successful on that one. So you can't just have one or two tricks and succeed. You have to, self-mitigate for DPS.
Did you say self-medicate?
Did I?
No.
Mitigate.
I said mitigate. He said mitigate.
But
I went, really? Self-medicate?
Well, you might need to.
Attempts, after
eat a cookie.
Yep.
or just eat a cookie or drink a potion, maybe.
A real life flask if it's really getting to you.
Yeah. But the other thing is you're still dealing with all the mechanics from normal. But now what happens is you get these mechanics from heroic, and they come in conjunction with each other. So you'll get them at the same time. I think at one point I was with a group of like 3 or 4 of us that were in one of the circles from. There's a mechanic that basically turns the floor into a no-go zone, except for where there's these circles, and everybody has to get in the circles. Well, the tornado thing still comes out, and if the tornado thing lands on you, well, it throws you away from it, and it landed right in the middle of a whole bunch of us, and it just sent us all flying out into the middle of the floor, where we just quickly got killed off because not only did we take damage from the tornado, but then we're standing in the middle of the floor, which is doing 1.5 million damage per second, and all of a sudden we dropped like flies, So it's a matter of getting used to these combinations of mechanics as well.
Okay. So how many times, and maybe you said this already, I apologize, how many times did we do polls on Coven?
A lot.
Yeah.
Most
I don't
of the
know.
night.
Yeah, it was, we got there with about, we had about an hour and 10 minutes left or so on the raid. So we got, and we took a break, and after the first pull, I think we did one pull, and then after that pull, we took a break, and then we spent the rest of the night on Coven, and we did a lot of wipe it up. I mean, there was a few times that we like played it out and stuff, but we wiped it up fairly early on a number of the pulls, just because, all right, there's not a chance we're gonna beat it at this point, so just go ahead and wipe it up, and then we'll try it again. But I don't think anybody really gets angry or upset about a progression boss that's as difficult to learn and to get used to as that one is. I mean,
I wouldn't think anybody in our group would,
No, it's going to take some time. And, Pucky had some really good suggestions, but he even said that, like, with his group that, they farm heroic. He says that basically, his group still occasionally has trouble on Coven. So it's a hard fight.
They covet Coven.
So my girls are tough.
Yeah, they are.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it next weekend. I really am. I want to.
You will see quite a lot of that fight, likely.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, this week's Dancing with the Boss is our final boss, Argus the Unmaker. So this little episode, what we do is we talk about from our perspective that we play, JoBui being range DPS. He talks about what he does. Lorelei talks about melee and our tank and our healer. So we're going to start off with JoBui with Argus the Unmaker.
Okay, so at the beginning of the fight, pretty much everybody's going to be stacking up in that spot. So I'm just stacking up with the rest of the group. And we stack up right at the foot of the boss. His back is to us because the tanks are hopefully facing him away from us. And basically what I'm going to do is just unload on the boss as hard as I can. Just, like making sure that I keep my eye on a couple of things. One is there are 2 players will get selected for some buffs that get dropped. They'll either get a white ball above their head that's kind of cloudy looking, or a kind of bluish looking ball that's sort of electric looking. One of the buffs gives you, I think, haste and mastery, and the other one gives you crit and something. I don't remember what the combination is exactly. I know one's crit and the other one is, I think it's crit and versatility, I think, and the other one's haste and mastery. Anyway, I usually collect the electric one because I like crit. So I watch for where the player drops the electric ball, and I go over and I get underneath it. Now, what's important about that is that ball will give me a buff that lasts for roughly 60 seconds on normal, and that buff will show up about every 30 seconds or so for the course of the first phase of the fights. And every time I touch it, it gives me another stack of that buff. And it can stack every time it drops. But if I were to touch the cloudy one after getting the electric one, then it resets my stacks back to just 1 stack. So I have to be really careful to only touch the electric one every time I touch one. And if you do the cloudy one, you just only touch the cloudy one every time you touch that one. All right. The other thing I have to watch out for is there's a thing called Soule Blight, and that puts a debuff on you that lasts for a few seconds. I think it's like 5-6 seconds or something like that. And I move out of the group. I move backwards out of the group, just pretty much straight back for the most part, and I avoid any other players who might have Soule Blight back there. I give them a little space too. After it goes off, it drops a circle on the ground of this death fog stuff, and then I head back to the group as soon as I possibly can. Then every now and again, the boss is going to put down a thing called, he's going to put down like a cone of this death fog stuff, and I just move to the right, because as soon as he casts it, he'll cast it in that direction. He won't change directions. So he starts the cast, and then we just run to the right. So I run to the right, it goes down, I see the cone on the ground, and I move back to next to the cone. And I just rinse and repeat that for the whole phase. From there, eventually, he'll clear the floor of all that cone stuff, because that stuff stays on the ground. And he'll clear the floor of all the fog stuff, and then we just fight the boss for a little while. At that point, players can get little bombs or big bombs. If I get a big bomb, I go to the position for the big bomb. One of our team members said that only healers get the big bomb. I'm not sure about that, but
I'm pretty sure, because I only ever hear Tap and Shepherd and all the healers go running over there.
As far as I know, it's just healers.
Okay, so
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. A player mentioned that this week, and so all right. So the big bomb goes to one location, and then there are little bombs which we call something else. They're burst something, or instead
I think
of
there's soul bursts.
Soul bursts, and the other one is like soul bomb.
Soul bomb. Yeah.
Soul bomb. Yep.
So, but we just call them big bomb and little bomb, right, or whatever. So if you get the little bomb, you go over to another spot. I make sure I'm 45 yards away. As a mage, I can ice block, but I still have to go 45 yards away from everybody else before I could ice block to drop it off myself. Because if I don't, I'll do damage to everybody within 45 yards of me. So because it still goes off even if I immune it. So I make sure I go 45 yards, and I either wait and let it fall off, or let it explode, or I immune and make it explode early and then head back to the group in the middle and keep DPS in the boss. Once we get through that phase, then Argus will go to the middle of the room, and he like kneels down and he summons a whole bunch of arcane masters. And they show up in like kind of like clock positions around the room. Each one of them is going to get a debuff on them type of thing, or I don't know if it's a debuff. They get marked, and they are vulnerable to a specific type of magic. So I always go for the one that has fire vulnerability first, because you'll do double damage to them. So it's a really great way to watch yourself climb the meters if you target the right arcane master.
And I gotta interrupt you. Have you taken it out by yourself yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you did.
But not with our group. I did it in heroic.
Oh, not with our group though, because we won't.
No, I did it in heroic. I was doing a heroic kill of Argus, and I was the only fire mage there, and everybody else was busy fighting other ones, and I killed it solo in that one. But that's the only. Somebody inevitably jumps in on mine.
Yes.
In ours, it's kind of a game for everybody now.
Yes, it's like a game.
Yeah. So you kill. I target the one with fire. I do as much damage as I can. Everybody else jumps in and finishes it off on me, and then it goes down. And then once I kill that one, I try and target any of them that have swords that are attacking the tanks. Usually we position one in the middle of the room, and there's another one that's being kept out by one of the other ads. We just keep attacking the ads until they're all dead. And now they will occasionally cast something called Cosmic Beacon. And if I see an ad casting Cosmic Beacon, I target the ad and I interrupt it. Just because Cosmic Beacon can do a lot of damage to people. Once all the ads are down, then Argus will crush everybody and kill us all. Right? Once we release, then there's a tree that we can go to. We have to run over to the tree, and then we're back alive. At this point, our group, usually heroes, and then we target the boss and hit him as hard as we can. And every now and again, we're going to get these orbs that come up. They're called, I think, reorigination modules, and they're just some orbs that show up around the room. Those must be killed. So I stop attacking the boss. I kill the orbs, or I reduce their health to 0 because they don't really die initially. You just reduce their health to 0. Otherwise, they'll make a giant pool on the floor. And then when they are not in the way, I attack the boss. I also watch out for swirlies on the floor, and I watch out for getting any of the little bombs on myself, because if I get the little bombs, I still have to move away from everybody. It gets a little hectic in that phase, and then I just hit the boss whenever possible, but it's always orbs. That's what we usually call them, the reorigination modules. We always call them orbs. It's always orbs over boss. I don't care how close the boss is to dying. If he's at 1% health, you still kill the orbs. If he's at 2% health, kill the orbs. 5%, kill the orbs. Just always kill the orbs, and then after the orbs are taken care of, get back on the boss, because the orbs will wipe the raid if you don't take those out. And I know that's a lot, but it's a pretty complex 4-stage fight, so there's a lot to do.
So I'm curious, if you die at some point during that last phase, what happens?
Okay, yeah, if you die, you go back to you're like a spirit, right? Like you would normally find yourself when you're dead, and wow, you release your spirit. It's important. It's not going to just put you in the spirit realm. You need to release, and then once you release, there's a tree in there that you can run to, and you can get resurrected. But there are also some ads in there. They look like the what were those things called from Miss Pandaria?
Even further back, they first showed up in Kara, I think.
Did they?
The Kara raid, yeah.
The little Shaw guys, or whatever.
Yeah, before you went up the stairs to the final boss. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's those little demon-y Shaw things, lurking about in there, and if you touch any of those, you'll do raid-wide damage to everybody who's still alive. But there are also circles that spawn, like little spheres that spawn around in there, and if you go and you touch one of those, I think those things are called motes of titanic power, actually. And I think the other ones are called hungering souls. But if you touch the motes of titanic power, you will give everyone who's still alive a buff, and it makes them stronger against the boss. So if you're dead, and you release your spirit, go around and try and collect some of those balls without touching any of the hungering souls, and then go touch the tree, and you will get resurrected and go back into the fight. And so that's a really pretty interesting mechanic. There's not a lot of places in World of Warcraft where when you're dead, you can do something useful for your raid.
Yes. And I know that the healers can actually heal the tree to keep the tree alive a lot longer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've seen that happen since we've been progressing. Is that the tree used to disappear really fast, and it's like, oh my god, I only got to come back from death like 3 times. Now it's like
3 times.
Well, I'm Stafford.
Yeah.
It's kind of his thing. Don't take it away from him.
The more people that use the tree to resurrect, the more the tree gets withered, and eventually it withers and dies and goes away, and then nobody can resurrect from it anymore. You're just left with whatever B-reses your team has left.
Correct, but you're still dead, and you can still run around and collect the orbs, the balls, and
That's
get
right.
the debuff. So
you can kill your raid.
Just because you die in this fight doesn't mean you're done. So don't get discouraged, because even in death you can help the living.
Yeah, in that fight, it's not time to go get another beer. It's time to help your team out, even if you're dead.
Yep. Yeah, and that's pretty much the fight for almost all of us as far as melee. But I'm going to let Lorelei, if she's got anything different she wants to add, talk about the melee DPS.
Well, and that's pretty much it. I think for melee, though, you have to be really careful about where you position yourself. And I know when melee gets soul burst at the beginning of the fight, it's very important that you're paying attention to DBM and get away from and move it back out of the group. Otherwise, you just mess everybody up. Did we talk about Cosmic Ray?
No, I didn't mention
Okay,
Cosmic Ray.
that's a phase 3 thing, and especially when melee's up at the boss fighting, you get these long strips of black rays that come out. I think there are 2 of them, and you've got to be careful to move out of those. Don't stand in those; you'll die pretty quickly. And I think that's pretty much it. Just it's real important for melee not to stand in front of the boss. He's got a pretty bad cleave,
Wait,
and there's now I know I take damage from them, but I've been looking to see if they have a name. But they're little white swirlies that show up on the ground when you get into the last phase of the fight. And I know I just get out of them. I don't know if they're doing a lot of damage, but I just back in and out of those to make sure I'm not taking any damage if they're causing it.
yeah, I think the thing you were talking about that goes across the floor is actually different than the cosmic rays. The
Oh, is
cosmic
that it?
Yeah, well, the cosmic rays happens when you have the big adds up, and that they shoot a beam across there and it targets a player. I think what you were talking about was the edge of obliteration, which
Oh, the scythe lines. Yeah.
yeah, it makes the scythe lines that you have to dodge on there,
Yep.
and those are pretty nasty. I think the things you were talking about that come down might be the embers of rage.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been
Yeah,
trying to look to see what those were, but I know if you
yeah,
get a couple of them, stacking really close to each other and you stand there, you take a lot of damage.
yeah. I'm looking at it here, and it says those are embers of
Swirlies.
yeah,
Yeah.
the embers of rage manifest as burning embers and fall to the platform and detonate, which sounds like exactly what those things do.
Right.
For like 750,000 damage every 2 seconds if it hits you. For 20 seconds for any player hit.
Yeah.
Wow, and that affects stacks. Oh man.
Yep.
So melee has to be really careful to get out of. When you see the swirly show up, it hasn't hit yet, so you have time to get away from it.
Yeah, it affects tanks too.
And that's
Okay.
about it. We have to do everything that. Now, I will say I probably don't go after the orbs as much as I could, but if they're near me, I will. But they get a black expanding circle underneath them that really can kill you. So I'll try to get a couple of hits in to one if it's close to the boss, and then I'll let the range take care of that.
Yeah, that's pretty much a range mechanic to take out
Yeah.
those orbs. Yeah.
But
and they go down really quick.
we do position the boss in our raid so that it's right next to where one of those come up. So the melee usually, in fact, as arranged, I typically ignore the one that's next to the boss because I know the melee will take care of that one, and I just go for the ones that are on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
It can be hard though because the black stuff that spreads out covers up all the little white swirlies, so you can get a double whammy on those.
And those orbs, man, when they go off, it's hellacious.
Yes.
When we were first doing this boss, I think there was one point where Durag and I ended up as the only 2 alive after the orbs went off because I ice blocked and he heals himself with stupid amounts of power, and and so we were the last 2 alive, and we were both like, yeah, we survived. Of course, we still died, but
Yeah.
we were really excited about surviving the orbs for a second.
All right. So from a tanking aspect, how is this one, Epistle?
Oh, easy peasy. Actually, no. There's a lot of moving pieces, and you've got to keep on top of them. The first thing is, of course, that's that sweeping scythe. It's a alternating tank debuff, tank swap mechanic that has to be maintained throughout the whole raid, and you have to keep the boss aimed away from everybody else, including the other tanks. So you just have to keep that standard for the whole fight, and it has all kinds of implications through a bunch of other mechanics, so you got to be aware of. So generally we're swapping on 3, and the first phase we'll just stand with the rest of the group just to make things easy, and then kind of run back and forth and taunt once we're through. But we've not found that 2 or 3 stacks, even 4 stacks, are too much of a problem for either one of us, even on early stages. Not too much damage, so we don't get too uptight about how many stacks go, but usually we're swapping on 2 just to keep on top of it and keep in practice. This phase 2 gets a little trickier. That's where all the the marks that are on the floor get cleared off. We pull the boss over to a mark we've already put towards the side of the circle. So we've gone from the middle off to one side. And the reason we do that is to help when those debuffs come on people. The soul bombs are the ones the tanks need to be worried about. We need to be in range to be able to run and get it while everyone else is in the middle. So what happens is if you get the soul bomb, as you know, you have to run to a tank. So one of the tanks has to go from tanking the boss to go out and rescue you. One of them will get the Avatar of Agramar debuff. So if you got that debuff, you have to run over and be there with that DPS. Otherwise, they might die, and you actually blow in your cooldowns to absorb damage to stop them from taking damage. If you miss that, they might take more damage, and if they're not particularly healthy, that could kill them. So you definitely want to be using that debuff. Now, the tricky thing to be on top of as a tank is that the Avatar of Agramar debuff is a bit fickle. So if you have it, and someone gets soul bomb and starts running out there, you actually have to see how much time you've got left on it. They haven't made it a nice clean thing, so that if you're tanking the boss, you have the debuff on you, it may drop before you actually get over there, and so it's alternating between the two tanks. So you have to coordinate between the two of you who's going to be getting the next one. Usually we find that the first time you get the Avatar, you get big and glowy and look a little Valkyr-like. You have to go from tanking the boss to the other tank taunting off. Go over for the first one, and then usually the next tank is going to get the next two. Now, that goes on for a while, but lately we've been killing the boss so fast we haven't had to alternate it, but that's something you're definitely going to have to be aware of. Who's going to have that Avatar buff and therefore saving your ranged. Phase 3, that's always fun too. You want to avoid the Cosmic Ray, but they haven't done too much damage to the tank, so it's not as important as some others. Now there's going to be two of those bosses that turn, or rather two of the ads that come and turn into a sort of a larger version of themselves. The one with one sword we tank in the middle, the one with two we tank by another one of the ads to cleave them down. I don't know which is the name of which, and as a tank you don't really have time to be reading labels anyways. You just have to see which one gets bigger, and usually Darg and I just grab whichever one's closer to us, and then depending on which one it is, either move to the middle or move to the side. But you got to be on your toes. When that happens, it's a snap aggro, grab, and move so they don't kill one of the DPS or one of the healers. Okay, phase 4. Almost have to catch my breath here. Of course, everyone dies. You're back in. You still have to worry about the scythe, but from here on, it feels a little bit easier because you're avoiding those little marks on the floor that Lorelei was talking about, and it's just basically a tank swap, except it's a little like Veramathras again, because you have to use every mitigation tool and trick you've got, especially the first few times you're taking them on before your gear scales up, because it will be quite a punishing fight at that last phase. And there's, of course, no sense of burning your mitigation when you're not tanking the boss. Then it's going to alternate probably about 2 stacks. And if it really gets bad and you die, well, release and come back, and hopefully you can pull it off really quickly before the other tank goes down. Because if we're both down, that fight ends pretty quickly. Yeah, that's the short version of it from a tanking perspective.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like you guys keep on your toes too.
It's fun. Once you know the rhythm and once you know the timing, it's easy, but it takes a bit to learn all those steps.
But are you affected by the black cones at all?
You mean, will it kill us? Yes.
Well, I mean, are you standing in it where you have to move also, or are you on the other side of it?
You mean in the black cone's first phase?
Yeah, first phase.
Yeah, first phase, we just stand with all the DPS and melee.
You do?
Melee
Okay.
healers.
Okay.
Yeah, we just stay there, and that we just back and forth from the other side as needed.
Okay. So I thought it would be really easy if you just, ran through them and then stayed out of the cone, because it always seems come back towards us.
Yeah, as well it should. But I'll do the same thing as everyone else in Sideswipe to try to pick up a debuff, but that's one extra added detail that we're not always on top of.
Okay. All right, Charity, what's your 4-step process?
So ours is pretty much close to the melee and the range for DPS. Mostly we're trying to do the mechanics, but still being prepared for the incoming damage that's going on. The first phase is mostly about keeping hots on people with bombs and keeping our healing circles down, or mine is rain, of course, trying to make sure that we get our debuffs so that we can heal better. The second phase is mostly about going to the bomb area and keeping everybody that gets hit with those alive and ourselves alive when that happens. Um, and then in the phase right before the ads, I sit down and I take a lay torrent potion. And what that is because of all the mana that I take out, I want to make sure I have full mana for the next phase. And it sits me down because there's this moment where he kneels and we're just standing there, and it sits me down and I like do this sleep mode and you can't move, but it's like my saving grace to get mana back. Um, and I get like 50% of my mana back just from doing that. And then that pops us right into the next phase, which is actually pretty intensive. The ads do a lot of damage to everybody, and I think there's an AoE damage going on at all times. I'm honestly not sure the technical reason or the term, but usually people are taking a good amount of damage, the raid wide anyway. And then of course we have to heal the tanks very aggressively because they take a lot of damage from their ads. That's why we just hold out as long as we can until the tank ads go down, and then it progressively gets easier. So there's that. And then in the next phase, after we die and come back, it's mostly a chaotic healing craze. That's the hardest part for healers. There's so much going down on the ground that we have to just use all we can. We're communicating as best we can to use those cooldowns and keep AoEs under everybody. And then on top of that, we're trying to see if we can keep that tree alive longer than it needs to. It's mostly you mostly have to use your intuition and go, okay, the tree is getting so damaged now that it's not worth it. Because if you just heal the tree, you could, but it would just go away and you would have no mana. So it's mostly better to heal it a few times until it seems like it's impossible, and then just let it go, so that you can have enough mana for everybody else, because everybody's getting hit with those bombs on the ground so much and then blowing up and dying, and we still have to take our bombs to the edge of the room, except this time we just blow up and die. So it's a lot of coordinating and hoping that we don't lose too many healers by the time the fight is over.
So do you save your big healing cooldowns for that third phase then, or or the fourth phase?
Luckily, well, when we're going through, okay, so are we saying, I don't know if they're actually phases, but the first phase and the phase with the bombs and then the phase with the ads, you're saying is third phase, right?
Right.
Okay, so yes, I have one or two cooldowns I use for like on the fly stuff, and then third phase is when I use my big cooldowns, because that's when I feel like I need to have raid cooldowns so that I can keep the tanks alive, because they're getting hit pretty hard by those ads.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that.
Those ads are the worst.
And sometimes we have those ads do get a spell off. Like if we don't get an interrupt in, we have to be prepared for that, because the whole group takes a lot of damage if they don't interrupt that spell that they do.
Okay. And so I'm just really curious, do you feel sorry for anybody who dies in the first phase?
Yes and no. I feel sorry for the people that think they have a bomb and they actually have a debuff and they run to the back. because it's all about they're just trying to do their their thing.
Right.
But at this point, like I used to, and at this point in our group, with the people that come constantly, at least I don't. I'm just like, oh well, because I mean they're just
They
gonna be
get to
dead.
come back.
Yeah, it the hard like I the great thing about I've always said about being a healer is I get to pick who lives or dies, and sometimes it's just like, you were dumb. Sorry.
Do you say that a lot about me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
No, there's the honesty.
Well, I was leading
Stafford
up to it.
sacrifice.
Yeah, she knew I was leading up to it. Well, awesome. That is an amazing fight. It really is. It's very intense. And I remember when you guys got to think back. The first time we went to fight it, I think we had a 20-minute JoBui talk because he had to explain everything because there is so much to it. I mean, I think he said he had like 6 or 8 pages of notes on this fight.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but I mean the notes are pretty long, but it's a really complex fight. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that hard once you get used to it. It's just there's a lot of parts to it, and
A lot
there's
of
a lot
used to.
what's that?
There's a lot to get used to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think everybody's pretty much gotten it down. We have had our like steps backwards, especially with the soul blights in the first phase. But in recent weeks, that has not been a problem.
Right.
Players have really stepped it back up when it comes to soul blights, which is really good because they're gonna have to be on point when we get there in heroic.
Right.
Because in heroic, everything's much faster, much harder, and a little more intense. But it's mostly the same. So it's gonna be interesting. But it's a pretty crazy fight, a really interesting fight from Blizzard, I think. Good final boss fight, I would say.
Well, it's very unique because the whole death thing, being able to do something as you're dead and, coming back to life even though you died at the beginning, that I'm my hat's off to him. That's a brilliant mechanic. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know that I can remember another boss in any of the previous raids from any of the expansions where there was something that you could actually do to contribute to the benefit of your team when you're dead like that. I don't remember that ever happening before.
You guys, does anybody remember anything?
They've only killed us. They haven't.
Yeah.
On Lich King, they killed us and brought us back, but that was the only other one that I can even think of that did that.
Yeah, and that was at the end of the fight. The
Mm-hmm.
one you're talking about. Yeah. So, we've seen that, but that was kind of an ending thing,
Mm-hmm.
This happens in the middle of the fight, and even if you died at the beginning of the fight, when it comes to that point, you come back. So it gives everybody that second chance, to continue on with the boss.
Well, almost everybody, because when we were first doing it, we'd get like 10 or 15 people that would die and eat up the tree, and then something would happen, and I'd die, and I'd go, oh, there's no tree anymore for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean that goes this without saying. You got it once you start learning the steps to the dance,
right.
And to cha this way and cha that way. See what I did
I will
there?
say these days, but these days there's our tree is usually up through that whole phase now.
Yes,
for the most part, it's not usually gone during that phase. Like it's not getting used nearly as much as it was when we were first learning this fight.
Yeah, we've progressed a long way since then, but it is an amazing fight. It's a very unique mechanic that they have. Hopefully, somebody will get a brilliant idea. I'm sure what it was is some Blizzard developer, middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, went, oh, we could make them do something when they're dead. Yeah.
We've got a task for Stafford.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because they're listening and they know that I die a lot. Yeah, that's what it is.
I like to pretend that Blizzard's listening and reacting to what we're doing.
So we're not going to be able to do our minutes today, but because we've got one more thing, I think Charity has some tips for our listeners for Beastmaster and Marksman Hunters.
So I went and I did the hunter challenges this week. Haha, I know the healer person is. But that is the other character that I play the most, oddly enough, even though I like to sacrifice our hunters in our raid. Um, anyway, I did it, and the first one I did was the Beastmaster, because that's my usual main spec. And it was actually pretty good. It's mostly about interrupts and running away and trying to stay away. And I guess you would call it kiting, but you're not really slowing anything down. There's a couple totems that pop up that you have to kill right away so you don't get it stunned. And there's a lot of interrupts you have to do because if you do not do them, they insta kill your pet. Um, and it can, or not insta kill your pet, but pretty much bring your pet really far down. So I used a couple things. I have a couple macros. Um, that way, and I'll be posting them on Facebook so that you guys have them. And I finally got it down after like I think I took a couple hours and did it one day, and then I came back and I did it another day. That one actually is on my Twitch. I did that while streaming. Unfortunately, the second one I went in and I went to go do it, and I got, I was like, okay, I'm gonna work on this one, and that one was fun. It's pretty much a kiting fight, which is the marksman one, and it's all about just slowing the target and kiting them around and then burst damaging the main person and then slowing and interrupting as fast as you can and then going back to bursting. That one was actually fun for me, I think more so because it was more of a kiting challenge than anything. I feel like the other one could be done as long as you were just exact on your interrupts for Beast, but Marksman was more so a skill test for kiting, and I feel like more of a hunter challenge, I guess I would say. Before it was just keeping your pet alive and interrupting. But yeah, I'm gonna have the macros that I use so that I didn't have to switch targets, and I did not unfortunately get to record that one because it was I went back later and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do some practice. I'm probably not gonna get it, and I got it down. I was really mad because I didn't record it, and I can't go back and do it again, so I can show you because once you do the quest, it's over. But I will be posting both those macros and a couple of the things that I did use for both fights, so that you can see that. And hopefully in the future, I will be posting a video at least for the Beastmaster one, and I might be stealing one of my friend's characters to try and do the Marksman one for you and do the same thing with that.
I was gonna say, why don't you just start with another level 1 hunter and level it up?
I have another hunter, but I'd rather do it for someone that's having trouble doing it.
Yeah. So. Plus, who here recently has gone? Yeah, I want to level from level 1 all the way up to 110. Who's actually had that thought?
I'm doing it.
I'm doing
I
it, but
did
I
it.
don't have a lot of time right now to do it consistently.
Well,
Yeah.
so I went, my gnome, we did the gnome race and we had that, and I went, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to take my gnome and go. I haven't touched it since a
Me
week after
either.
the gnome race.
I did
No.
a little bit, and then I just haven't had time to get
I
back
leveled
on.
mine to 110 and then geared it up and haven't played it since.
Yeah, nobody's really doing that.
I'm working on I made a light forged warrior tank that I'm leveling up slowly. He's like at level 50, but I don't play him that much.
Oh, you're in the whole Black Rook Mountain part.
No, with the way they've got it going now, you don't have to do like specific zones.
You can go wherever you want.
There's some guidance to where you can go, but I mean, like I was looking, and from what I see, I can avoid going to Outland entirely if I so choose, which is great because that's my least favorite leveling zone, except for Nagrand. I like Nagrand for leveling in Outland, but everywhere else in Outland, I'm like, no thanks.
All right, so I gotta ask, Outland. Outland always had the big robot that came around and stomped on your head, and everybody hates those, and we all went back and killed it. I get that, but how many of you walked up to the edge, and looked down at the broken planet and went, I wonder if I can survive that? Anybody?
I actually have, and it's such a weird little phobia that even on a game, I can't walk to an edge of something like that and look over it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I hated Outland because of the areas that were broken and you would fall on.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
see, I love doing that because I had a druid. And run off the edge. That still is my favorite thing in game. Just run like snake to an edge, leap off, and turn into bird.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun thing to do.
Nice, nice. Well, guys, thanks for coming. Excellent podcast. We are definitely out of time. Like I said, we're cutting our minutes short. We're not going to do them. They will be ready to go for next week.
Woo woo.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
And I'm
So,
on holidays.
yeah.
I have
Yeah,
time to
they're-
write. Wow. I don't know what
they're
to
all-
do with myself now. Wow.
Already ready for next week, I think, actually.
yeah, already ready. So I do want to thank Charm for her beautiful music. Please go visit her website and her YouTube channels. The links are in the description below because she does do my my favorite song, I Kissed an Orc. I love that song. That's just, I play that all the time. And then, of course, BenSound from BenSound.com. He didn't have anything in this particular episode, but that's all right. We'll still give him some credit. And Vincent Moretto for our heavy metal tavern music at the beginning of the show. So thanks, everybody, for coming. Fans, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
See you, folks.
Take care.
Bye bye.